Oh, how's it going, everybody? Today we got an Eaton Viking that we're going to be working on. It's an 826 HMSK80. It's got 6 forward speeds and I think just 1 reverse. Track driven, so this thing's basically impossible to move when it's on the ground. So what we did is we went, I don't know if you guys can see it, but we got a little cart here. We bought that for $15 at Princess Auto. It's got a 1,000-pound load rating. We bought 2. I think they were like $15.99 or something. It's a 2-stage, so it's got the impeller in the center, and everything's in working order. We put a new carb on it, and then we took the carb from this one and put it onto a 1032 Craftsman snowblower. That also had the HMSK80 on it, and it, both now run perfectly fine. So, we really, I think we bought this for $150 off a guy. Awesome deal for what it is. There's no rust on it. It works perfectly fine. The light didn't work, so we fixed that up. We just had to, fix the ground cable. Like I said, it's a little hard to move, if you want to, move it around your garage and stuff. So like I said, we got that cart. You lift it up, put the cart underneath it, and you can roll it basically anywhere you want. And like if you could see, it moves way easier now. The only problem is, I don't know if you guys can catch that, is the right side track at the front end here. It's starting to come off, and that was just from driving straight. When I put it in forward, that happened. It's starting to come off. I'm just going to start by taking all the bolts off here, and we're going to see why exactly the track wants to keep coming off to the left. Alright, so by the looks of this, that's 1/2 inch. These are 3/8 down here, but I just went ahead and loosened this one, because when you turn this, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but it just moves that wheel in that way. When I loosen this off, this was like this, and it popped in. So the wheel, you're gonna want this lined up as straight as possible. That's just a slider, and it's exactly what I thought it would be. Basically, you're just trying to adjust it so that it's straight. If I look in there, things are looking. They're not looking too greasy. That chain doesn't look that great. So ideally you'd want to take the track off, and I think I'm going to, not just for the purpose of a video, but just so I can, because I've never worked on one of these before. I've never worked on a track system, especially on an Eaton Viking. I can't even find a manual for this thing. When you look up Eaton Viking, I think there's like sewing machines and ovens come up for some reason. So sometimes that happens. You can't you can't really get manuals for everything. Just to you got to figure it out yourself. So we're gonna go ahead and take this apart, and if we break it, we'll fix it. Okay, so I went ahead and took all those bolts off. This back here, it was caught a little bit, but if you just wiggle it a little bit, it should, and I'm trying to hold the camera here, should pop right out. This little washer can go back like that, and you can see there is some stuff in there, so I'm gonna get that cleaned out. Basically, I just want to have a look at how this thing works, make sure everything is in working order, and it looks like this thing's pretty simple to work on. Basically, like I said, the shaft comes out, goes to a sprocket, that goes to a chain. This is your driven wheel, and this is just your follower. But if that one is, like I said, adjusted improperly or to the left, then obviously as your track rotates on the wheels, it's going to want to push off to the inside, and that's exactly what was happening. So as soon as, like I said, as soon as I loosened off that outside bolt, the wheel kicked in like that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the same thing that we did here. Remove these the 4 bolts, the 2 1/2 inch and then the 2 3/8, and I'm going to do that to the other side, and then I'm going to take this outside blast it with the hose just to get everything clean, maybe a little bit of degreaser, and then we're going to hopefully see if I can jack up the rear of this thing to get the tracks in the air so I can get them free turning, and then we'll go ahead and lubricate that chain. Make sure these wheels are good. Make sure, you know, if there's any bearings in there, that the bearings are good, and just do, you know, a basic tune-up and inspection on it, and make sure she's ready for winter. But other than that, guys, you know, for 150 bucks, all it needed was a, you know, $20 carb, an oil change, and to fix the ground on a you know, simple little light. I'm gonna go and get that pulled off the other side, and then we'll spray it, oil it, lube it, and I don't know, maybe I'll take a look at seeing about pulling the whole track off and seeing how the insides of it. Okay, so we got this thing all cleaned up. I'm going to take some WD-40 because it's a water displacement, and I'm going to spray it on the chain. We just basically put some degreaser on it, sprayed it clean, got all the shit out of there on both sides. But like I said, I'm going to use some WD-40 on that chain just for now, and then we're going to use proper chain lube afterwards. Okay, so I just sprayed this down, got all the shit out of there that was in there, lubricated the chain with some chain lube. I've lifted it up into the air, just using a chain fall, just so I can get it to what I would call freewheel, which is just like this. And now I can move the tracks around. I can lubricate the rest of the chain, and you know, because I couldn't reach it before, so I'm going to lubricate the rest of that chain, and then we're going to go ahead and try to get this panel back on here, and then we're going to pull this front wheel, which is not the driven wheel, this is the driven wheel. We're going to pull that wheel as far up as we can to get the track nice and tight, because right now there's a lot of slack on it because that's all the way back. Okay, so it looked like we got a little bit of a mouse nest inside of here once I spun this around, because I guess this is hollow. These are just two separate pieces. So you can see here there's all kinds of fucking mouse hair, and so what happened was they got up inside of there and started building a nest. And even though this is on, you know, if that's a hole like that, that's all they really need. And he got up in there, so now I'm gonna have to go and just check the other side. But once we get the plate back on, we'll be able to put that wheel forward and get some tension back onto this track. But definitely glad that I saw that inside of there, and I was able to pull that out. Okay, so this side, a little bit cleaner. There's no mouse nest on that side, and this side looks pretty good as well. So I think I'm gonna start with this side and get the panel back on here. Try to get these bolts lined up, and then once I get the panel on, we can slide that wheel forward and get some tension on it. Okay, so we got the panel back on, but there's still a lot of slack in here. But what you can see is this has an elongated curve on it. So once you get that tightened up, you just want to get it snug, not all the way tight. You twist this, and as you twist this, it pulls this out, because that's wider there. That'll loosen it, and then if you rotate it counterclockwise, it'll tighten it and bring it out. Okay, so I went ahead and took the track off. Basically, to do that, you just got to pull the front wheel off, and while you're pulling the front wheel off, you know, the track's going to come with it. Just kind of slide the track off of the back, and the whole wheel right there, that should just slip right off. And this one here, everything looks in okay shape. The reason I did this, back in here, right there, you can see there's one of these adjusters, and for some reason when I loosen that off to get some adjustment on that, it's not loosening. So upon further inspection, when I was turning that bolt back there, this axle here was spinning. So what I'm going to do is get a pair of vice grips, locking pliers, hold on to that, get that bolt loose, and I might end up just taking this axle right out. I might take the back, I might pop the chain, take the back wheel off as well, take a look at that axle, maybe take a wire brass wheel to it, just to get some of the shit off of it. And then when I reassemble everything, probably going to put some grease onto it, just so that nothing's binding and everything is properly lubricated. So normally you wouldn't want to take a pair of ice grips to an axle because you could end up putting some scratches in there, but for this application I just had to do it, because now that spins but my socket doesn't, and the bolt is loosening off, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. So once I get that pulled off, probably hit it on the little wire wheel on there. I'll probably just use that and just get some of the shit off. End up doing the same to this side to make sure that side's all lubricated before we throw it back together. And I'll probably put some, I don't know, I might put some never sees, some anti-seize on that bolt. This is a snowblower, so everything gets wet with snow, and if I ever need to adjust the track, I want to be able to move that. So I might end up popping this off, like take that bolt right out, pop that off, put some anti-seize in behind there, just so that if I ever need to adjust it, then I should be able to with ease in the wintertime. Okay, so we're just fitting everything up. To get your back wheel off, there's a pin right there. You pop that off, pull it out, pull your sprocket and your rear wheel off at the same time. I just did that so that I can inspect that axle, put some grease onto it like I did on the front one, and then the easiest way to get your track back on. And by the way, when you're putting your track back on, you want to make sure, see how there's like a little groove, like it's got a little bit of an edge. You want that little edge facing forward to the front of the machine, because that's what's going to grab, right? If you put this track on backwards, it's just going to slip on that angle. So you want that edge pointing towards the front of the machine, because this thing rotates like this, and that's going to help it dig into the snow. But the easiest way to put this track back on this machine is to get both the wheels off, put both of your wheels into this track, set everything up, tighten up your bolts at the back, just for now, because you're going to want to loosen that off after to adjust things. But tighten everything up so that that isn't like hanging off on an angle. You want it coming out straight, and then you're going to be sliding both wheels on, these metal wheels on at the same time, and your sprocket onto this driven axle here, and then put your pin back in, flip that down, and then it'll be much easier then to have both of these wheels on, and then to be trying to put your track on, because it's not going to want to slip on easy. But I'll go ahead and get some grease on that shaft, get the wheels, and I just got it laying over there right now, just so that I don't get a whole bunch of grease all over my little work area here. And once I get that greased up and the other wheel inside of the track, then we'll go ahead and try to put it all on as one piece. Okay, so we got everything back together. Like I said, what you're going to want to do is, it's easier with two people, one to hold the back wheel assembly and then one to hold the front wheel assembly. Once you have your two axles tightened up, you want your axle as far back as you can on this side, and that'll give you enough slack on your track. Again, you want to make sure that the teeth here are facing forward on the top part. Then you slide both of these wheels on at once with the track around it, and then you can just leave your sprocket here with your chain hanging. Then once you got these two on, you can go ahead and slide your sprocket on. Then there's a little hole that you got to put a pin in, and the best way to line that up is just to use a little Allen key, and you can rotate it as you're going, and then when it hits the hole, it'll drop in, and then you'll know where to lift up your track, and then you can pop that pin in, snap that down around the axle like that, and this thing's ready to have the plate put back on. Once we get the plate back on, then we can start with adjusting the front wheel for left and right, and bring it as far forward as we can to get some nice tension on that track. Okay, now comes the important part, guys. What you're going to want to do is, once you get this bolt snug here, you're going to want to get someone, a secondary person, with 2 box end wrenches similar to that, and you're going to want to put them over top of the tabs, apply downward force onto that adjustment piece, and while the person is adjusting or applying downward force, you're going to want to go in and tighten this nut up on both ends of the axle. You're also going to want to make sure that after you've applied the downward pressure and you've snugged up those bolts on both sides of that axle, you're going to want to make absolutely sure that both of these adjustment brackets are in the same position, and that will ensure that your track is straight. Now once you've gone and done that on the one side, you're going to want to come over and do the exact same thing on the other side. Now you guys can see I got a little bit of grease in behind there. That's just so that once we're running this thing in the winter, it's going to get snow on it, it's going to get wet, things can get a little corrosive, and we don't want that to rust in there, make it hard to adjust later if you ever need to make any adjustments. So just put a little bit of grease in behind those brackets, and it should make adjusting on the outside and the inside a little bit easier for yourself. As for the back axle, it's just a straight axle with a hole in that plate, so you just want to go ahead and tighten this bolt up and the one on the back side right there as well. And that should be it, guys. We'll go out, take this thing outside, we'll fire it up, and hopefully once we run it, we should be able to put it in gear and run it forward without this track hitting the inside of that chute. As you guys can see now, that track doesn't go onto the inside anymore, and it's just because we had to adjust those little rotators. So she's done, she's ready. Everything's lubed up, oil change, new spark plug. We fixed that light. The light works now. This thing works awesome. Well, boys, our repair jobs seem to work. This thing works awesome. The new carb works great. It fires right up, goes in all the gears, and the track doesn't come off when you put her in forward or reverse. So the only thing that's left for me to tell you guys is after you do your adjustments, you just want to make sure that you got a nice little bit of tension on that belt. You want to be able to lift this up just a bit, but you want to feel that tension. Now that's for both sides, right? Because you don't want that track to come off. So as you can see, I can lift it up just a bit, but there's still just a little bit of tension there. That'll keep them nice and tight and make sure that your tracks stay on. That's it for today, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one. So if you enjoyed the video, hit like, subscribe for more weekly videos. I try to upload 2-3 times a week, just the odd repair job or service, whatever it may be. But in the upcoming weeks, we're going to be featuring a full rebuild of the Briggs & Stratton engine that came off of that Troy-built snowblower that we bought, and a couple other things that I got going. So be sure to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more, guys. Thanks.